Okay,
Ladies and gentlemen, bury Steven in the comments, please, because he is a fake fan.
Sebastian, cut this all out.
Nah, Sebastian, keep this in.
Sebastian, you and me against Ankit, we're fine.
You don't even have his phone number.
Please. Um,
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Flip the Scripts. I am Ankit Madhira.
and I'm Stephen Nieman. Join me and Ankit as we travel through the world of adaptation.
This week, we are talking about Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the Sea of Monsters. For some reason, Steven and I have decided to go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, so our first two episodes, of course, were focusing on The Lightning Thief, which was directed by Christopher Columbus and written by Craig Titley. Apparently, Fox, who produced this film, decided that Chris Columbus and Craig Titley were no longer correct for the project and have brought on a new director and a new writer. This is still produced by Christopher Columbus. The new director's name is Thor Frutendothal. I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's German. I do apologize. German director. He's best known for The Diary of a Wimpy Kid and Hotel for Dogs. Oh boy.
Hotel for Dogs, fantastic film, underrated film. It's a
No.
good time.
Okay, but
Hey,
again,
have you seen it?
a children's yes.
Sure. It might be made for children, but it is a fantastic, fun film.
You want to give the guy who directed Hotel for Dogs an action adventure?
He wouldn't have been my first choice. I'm just defending Hotel for Dogs.
Okay, fair enough. And our writer is Mark Guggenheim, who's best known for wait for it, the live action Green Lantern starring Ryan Reynolds.
So moving on, this movie was made
No,
with a
kill us. It's
budget.
Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern. We have to we have to talk about that on it. We can't
I don't
just
want to talk
ignore
about
that.
it. I don't want to talk about it. I
Let's
don't
talk
want
about the ratings, shall we, Ankit?
of Green Lantern or this.
Of this movie. Fuck
Okay.
I hate Green Lantern. I love the superhero. I hate the live action film with Ryan Reynolds.
I
Alright.
mean,
He's better at Deadpool anyway.
it's good to know that Ryan Reynolds also hates it, so you know.
He literally makes fun of it in the first Deadpool film. I laugh so much because no. I mean, obviously one's made by Warner Brothers and the other's Fox. So Fox movie making fun of a Warner Brothers film. Oh, both companies. Well, at least Fox went under now. Is owned by Disney. Okay.
Blame the mouse. All right, so actually, don't blame the mouse. I want the mouse to hire me. Hi, mouse, please hire me.
Hi, Mickey. Stop being so
Hi, Mickey.
anti-Semitic. Let's continue.
Anyway, so the ratings for this film, Percy
Yeah.
Jackson, Sea of Monsters. I'm sorry if I misspoke earlier. It is not called Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the Sea of Monsters. It is just Percy Jackson, Sea of Monsters. Um,
Yeah. Just like in the. I mean, again, title titles mean a lot.
titles.
I think.
Titles mean a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
So
The
anyway,
book is literally called "And the Sea of Monsters." And the Sea of Monsters.
I have the book as well. We have different copies of it. This is my cover of the book
Oh, that's the
currently.
copy that I have at home. I love that copy.
Okay. Yeah, it's a really nice copy. It doesn't really give much away. It's a fun little copy.
Yeah.
This
I
is
mean,
for
this also
listeners
doesn't
listening.
give.
I'm currently at home in Seattle, so I have access to my books. So, hence why I get the cover today. But anyway, ratings for the film. So, the film got a 42% on Rotten Tomatoes. Seems generous.
Sounds
And
about right.
a 5.7 out of 10 on IMDb. Seems very generous. We'll get to why I think it seems very generous.
Let's go to the Rotten Tomatoes score, shall we?
Rotten Tomatoes. Well, I mean, like we'll get to the scores. We always talk about them as we go through the film.
Oh no, but
but
what did Rotten Tomatoes? We do IMDb and then Rotten Tomatoes. What did Rotten Tomatoes
I already
go
said
with?
Rotten Tomatoes,
You
Steven.
said
It's good to know that you
IMDb.
listen. No, I just said Rotten Tomatoes has a 42%, which is very generous, and then I saw you the IMDb one. It's good to know
Oh,
that you listen when I speak.
but the Rotten Tomatoes, is it the 42% the critic score or the audience score?
Oh, that's what you meant. Okay, my bad. Yes, the 42% is the critic score, and then the audience score is 54%.
Sounds like somebody paid somebody for something.
Yeah.
Okay, so just giving you a little history of what the Sea of Monsters is about, not ruining everything. We'll get more into depth, of course, as we go through the episode. So Sea of Monsters is about Percy Jackson again. He's now 13 years old, and he's at a new school. And a bunch of stuff happens. His friend Grover has been kidnapped, and it's a quest to save Grover, and to save the camp because Thalia's tree, which we talked about a bit in the last episode. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. Is dying, so he's off to find the Golden Fleece and save Grover. Uh, and it kind of follows the Odyssey, if you will, because in the Odyssey, Homer writes about Odysseus and he travels through the Sea of Monsters. Percy's kind of reliving that Greek story.
Yeah. So that's the base of what's going on. We have some new friends that are thrown into the mix that we'll talk about in a little bit, but we see a bit more character growth since Grover isn't really around for this one.
Yeah,
He's, as Steven aforementioned, he's kidnapped. So he's not really,
or
there.
goat napped. Sorry,
Moving on.
bad
So the
joke.
budget.
Wait. Well, technically, goats are kids when they're younger, so he could have been kidnapped,
He could have been kidnapped.
just with
Um,
an extra D before the napped part.
yeah, like Jason Kidd.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a basketball reference for anyone who didn't know what that was.
Yeah, I don't know who Jason Kidd is. I only agreed with you because I was like, ah, Ankit knows who he is.
Oh, thanks for playing along, man.
You're
So
welcome. That's half the battle with you.
hurtful. The budget of
Truthful.
this film was $90 million, and the box office was $200.9 million,
So they made their money?
and some.
Wow. Interesting. Did the last one make money as well?
I'm pretty sure it did. Let me check real
I
quick.
mean,
But
it wouldn't make sense to have a sequel if the last one didn't make any money.
yeah, the first one made more. It actually had a bigger budget of 95 million and then made
Yeah.
226.4 million.
So Fox cut the budget by like five, and then they made more money.
They made less money.
They made money in comparison to like how much they spent.
Sure. Yes.
I mean,
Lovely.
the trailer didn't look good. I mean, like to be honest, people watched the trailer for the Sea of Monsters and they were like, "Ah, I'm not gonna watch that." When the movies came out, saw the first trailer of the first one and went, I could watch that, and was down until I read the book and I was like, that's not Percy Jackson. And then and then the Sea of Monsters came out. I was like, nah, I've read the book. This doesn't look good. I love Logan Lerman. Nah.
Nah. So why don't we get into it?
Yeah.
Let's start. So we start with an opening prologue, and it's Talia's story. We get told that, back in the day there was a young Annabeth, Luke, and Grover. Something that I found funny was that he said 7 years ago, and 7 years ago Annabeth was a 7-year-old, but now 7 years later Annabeth's a 19-year-old because or 17-year-old because that's how math works.
I think they were
And age,
16 in the last film, so they'd be 17 now. So they would have been 10 years old in the backstory.
but like 10 years old in the backstory makes sense for Luke and Talia. It doesn't make sense for Annabeth, who was, 6 or 7.
Yeah. What was
And
he?
they had a 6 or 7-year-old playing young Annabeth.
So here comes Okay, so a lot of what this film does, just to put a blanket statement, because I'll kind of talk more about this over, not to defend it, because I think there are a lot of issues with this. Is I feel like this film is trying to do one of two things, at least in the first part of the film, and later on in the second part, is it's making up for the sins of the father. And what I mean by that is it's trying to catch the audience up of everything they didn't put in the last movie.
And I will give the movie credit for that.
Because, like, as we talk about in our last two episodes, please watch them. They're out. They should be out now by the time this episode runs. Otherwise, there's no point
That
to this episode.
that
Um,
usually is how episodes work, Steven.
but please watch them. You'll understand why we're talking about this. But it feels like, again, the writer was like, "Oh my gosh, there's all this lore that I want to talk about that the last movie forgot." And so the movie, it feels like half a movie, right? Because this is the same problem that I have with I'm trying to remember another film that did the same thing, where like uh the they tried to fix everything from the original film in the sequel, and they ended up only doing half a film. Um, it was a Marvel film. I'm trying to remember what it was.
Thor?
It might have been Thor.
Because I know that everyone hated the second Thor movie.
Yeah, it
Yep.
it was a movie. It was I'm not gonna remember, but there was a movie that tried to like fix everything from the original and then try to tell its own story at the same time, and that doesn't work.
No.
Um, and I'll remember the name of the movie that I'm thinking about another time. But
You're gonna remember the name of the movie in like 10 minutes when we've moved past this thought.
yeah, but basically, yeah. So it's hard when like oh, it's Star Wars. It's the final Star Wars film.
Okay, that's
It's
not even Marvel.
no, but it was Disney. It's point still stands. Rise
No,
of
it doesn't. It's a completely different franchise than
Words are
Marvel.
hard on Kit. Move on. Rise of
Words are hard.
Skywalker.
At least get the right franchise.
Okay, so but
Don't put that sin on Marvel.
fair, but the
Marvel has
rise
its own issues.
Last Jedi was one of the most. I mean, I know this is a very like I'm going to cause a controversy in the comments for people who love Last Jedi. Last Jedi was a piece of doo doo. And then Rise of Skywalker came in. J.J. Abrams went, I have to fix everything that Rise of Skywalker caused problems with the trilogy of telling the story. And then basically couldn't. So he told half of a story of fixing everything and half the story of an actual story, and the movie just fell to crap. And that's
Cool.
what
So,
happened in this film.
yeah. So, we learn about this story where young Annabeth, Luke, Grover, and Talia, they're running to Camp Half-Blood. They're being pursued by monsters. Talia sacrifices herself, and, the others get to camp. Her father, Zeus, at the last moment, turns her into a pine tree, creating a magical border around camp. That's how the
Cool.
movie starts.
So while this is truthful in the sense of the book, this whole story is introduced in the first book.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with them introducing it in this book, this film, because obviously the first movie didn't. But we might be talking, yeah. But I think that from my perspective, it's hard now because you've there's a lot of there's no hill. There's no Half Blood Hill also, so they
Hmm.
they didn't do the story like complete justice. And I think that like in the last in the last film, there was like this arch thing
They
at
had to
Camp Half
keep
Blood.
they had to keep some of what was from the last film
Yeah.
compared to this film. I don't think I didn't mind the story starting this way, like you said, though, because it felt like they were trying to fix it.
Yeah. It was also cool to see like young Annabeth, young Grover, and even though I know the ages don't make sense, and obviously Ankit and I have issues with the ages of these characters, young Luke as well. I'm like, okay, cool. Maybe we'll get some like actual character development for Luke in this film compared to the last film. But
Spoiler alert, not much.
Oops. My name is Mark. I don't know how to write. It's okay. I wrote Green Lantern. Everyone loved my Green Lantern.
Yeah, yeah, everybody, even the person in it.
Everybody.
Even
Yeah.
the person in it. So, anyway, then back in the film, we, shift to Percy in some type of competition against Clarisse. It's like this massive, like, obstacle course jungle gym thing. What is this? Where did this come from? Like, what is happening?
So I think this is supposed to be like the comparison to like in the book. You know how there's that lava pit thing that the half bloods have to like go over the
You mean
obstacle
the
course.
climbing wall?
Yeah, the climbing wall. So I think
Yeah.
it's supposed to be representation of the climbing wall,
Uh, okay.
or like their version of it, if you will. Um, Clarisse is a really interesting person in this film. Ankit and I talked about Clarisse in the TV show recently, and I said I didn't like the how she was cast. I feel like Clarisse is way too off put from the book. Brilliant, but the actor did a really good job with the lines she was delivered and like actually like. Yet while she doesn't physically look like Clarisse from the book, she has like the attitude.
Yeah.
This
And
actor, on
also
the other hand,
we gotta keep in mind, like, I think the actor that plays Clarice in the TV show that's currently coming out is like maybe 15.
yeah, that's true.
I don't know
This
of that many
actor,
super buff 15-year-olds.
that's true. This actor who's played by Levin Ramblin, uh, I don't know. She just doesn't feel like a Clarice. She's kind of too friendly with Percy. Also, again, they didn't introduce her in the last book,
Yeah.
so now we're just playing catch up.
We're just playing
I
catch up.
And then so it's a competition now between him and Clarisse to get to the top of the hill, and they start playing the most iconic 90s music, it's 2000s music I've heard on like roller coasters at Six Flags, Light 'em Up, which I'm like, okay, I've heard this song way too many times. We didn't really talk about it in the last episode, but I told Ankit how I hate the fact that Percy Jackson doesn't have like a soundtrack to like tell the story.
Yeah.
Because like we talk about like we talked about how like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Hunger Games when we start watching it. P.S. That's a hint of our next series. Um, has like a soundtrack. I feel like this has no music integrity.
Yeah, because they didn't get someone to create a soundtrack for it. It's a jukebox. It's a jukebox soundtrack.
Yeah.
So you can't it's not something where, you listen to it and you're like, that's Star Wars. You don't listen to it and you're like, that's How to Train Your Dragon. You don't listen to it and say, like, that's from that film or from that franchise. Like, there's nothing tying it because it's a jukebox soundtrack, which works for certain films. I don't think it works for this one.
Yes. So
Percy
we
ends up
are.
losing this lovely
Yeah.
competition because someone, falls and he's stuck and his leg is stuck in the ladder and Percy's got to be good guy Percy, so he goes down to save the guy. And Clarisse wins the competition. So,
But there's like one character that I really want to talk about before we go on from this. Like, there's this like,
oh,
so like Grover's cheering on for Percy, and then there's this like other this this other guy who comes up and he's like, Clarice,
the other satyr,
the other satyr. I'm trying to remember his name. Do you remember his name?
Titus, something like that.
Yeah, something like Titus or something. I thought it was hilarious. I was like, I was down for Titus. I was like, dude, you just you have like the you just want to yell and scream, and I'm down for you, man.
I'm here for it. I'm here for that.
I think
He
his
he
name
was a
is Inchotwe,
sure. Why not? See, I was
named
close with
played by
Titus.
Jordan Weller.
Okay.
Uh, but like it was just I was like not in the books, not a character from the books. I just thought it was really funny to have a guy like being like a Clarice stand. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. He was absolutely fantastic. What I will say though, before we move on fully from this scene, so they added Mr. D,
Finally,
and he is fantastic.
played by
Staniel
the most
Staniel
excellent
Tucci.
Stanley Tucci. Here he is, boys, girls,
He
and all
nails
genders
it.
in between.
He nails it, and I
Ah,
loved his line where he pours the wine, it turns into water, and then he just goes, the Christians have a guy who can do this trick in reverse. Now that's a god. Like, yes. Like, he embodied Mr. D so well. Thank you, Stanley. They also
yeah.
recast Chiron. Pierce Brosnan said I've had enough, so they cast Anthony Head as Chiron.
Yeah. Which is interesting. I mean, like, I thought that, of course, I loved what Pierce Brosnan did with Chiron. This new guy, I don't know. He just kind of was there.
He existed.
Yeah, but I love the fact that Mr. D is finally in there, ready to go. And so, then Clarisse wins. She gets the whole red orb thing, red circle thing from the top of
Sure.
the tower
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
after Percy saves the guy from death. So you think Percy would get like the praise because he literally saved the guy from dying.
Nah.
Nah.
Where's the fun in
But
that?
but then then he comes off of it and like Annabeth and Grover are there, and Annabeth and Percy's relationship in this film is can, can we talk about that really quick? I mean, we'll continue with the film, but I just want to talk about in the last film, they kind of made Annabeth and Percy seem like they're an item now, but in this film, they don't really do anything. They kind of do weird stuff as an item. I don't know. Uh, I think the movie wanted them to be in a relationship and wanted to, both. You know what I mean?
They wanted both, they didn't pick.
No. So it was a lot of awkward time with Percy and Annabeth on screen.
Yeah.
Uh, but basically, Percy and Annabeth, Annabeth, and Grover all having a conversation, and Percy's like, "Oh, I'm a failure." Da 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 da.
I
Uh,
do enjoy how, like, Grover tries to be like, "Oh, but you did this. Oh, you did this. Oh, you did this," which are all things. The reason that I'm not saying what those specific things are is they are all things that happen in later books, so I don't wanna accidentally ruin it for anyone who hasn't
mhm.
read what the books are and like the stories and everything. So like I won't go more in depth, but pretty much Grover tries to cheer him up and is like, "Oh, but you did this." Apparently everything was done by Clarisse. And I was just like, "Wow, Grover, you're a really bad best friend."
I've just really, really enjoyed. For the first time, I'm actually, I do. We talked about in the last episode. We do like Logan Lerman. We do like Alexander Dario, and we do really enjoy
Brandon T.
um,
Jackson.
Brandon T. Jackson as the three main characters. They're just too old for these characters, and the relationship is a bit
Again, they did very good for what they were given.
exactly. So, the big issue I have with this at the start, just comparing it to the book. So just already, we're at camp at the start of the film. In the book, we start with Percy in a new school because at the end of the book of the last book, Percy decides to go home. But in the film, he just decided to stay at Camp Half Blood.
Well,
With
no, in the film we're just already in the middle of the summer. Um,
No, but like in the film of the last film, he just stayed at Camp Half Blood. Like there's no him going home.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I think again, it's the same like sins of the father. They don't have time to explain that Percy can go home, all the stuff, right?
All this stuff. Beautiful.
But Percy has a best friend. His name is Tyson. We'll get to Tyson more as we go through the film. At his new school, where he's like in a school for hippies, and I really enjoy it. And
And they
there's
played
these
dodgeball. That's all we'll say.
dodgeball.
They
We're
played
the
dodgeball. They played
oh,
dodgeball.
but we're but the dodgeball game's not in the book, not in the
Nope,
film.
it's not in the film, but they
Definitely
played dodgeball.
dodgeball. We'll call it definitely
It's
dodgeball.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They play a very, very civil game of dodgeball. Which, have you heard the thing that, like, now apparently, like, schools have banned dodgeball from, like, gym class?
Really?
Yeah, because apparently now it's not okay for one kid to throw a ball at another kid. That's what bonded us in, like, gym class. That's how I made friends. I was the new kid in 8th grade and I was the short kid in 8th grade. I literally made friends because I was shifty at dodgeball.
Because you could dodge.
Because I could dodge. I couldn't necessarily throw the hardest, but like, look, you get knocked in the head with a little rubber ball. Like, oh, it's gonna knock some sense into you. You're gonna understand. Maybe don't get hit by the ball in the head.
Yeah. So, basically, Annabelle shows up at Percy's new school. They're like, "We got to go to camp. There's something wrong at camp." And so they're like, "Oh, okay."
And then they all get to
Uh,
camp.
they all take a magic taxi from the with the sisters, with the fates, with the sisters of fate, who all share one eyeball and one tooth.
We do see them a
And
bit later, so we'll get more into them later.
yeah, but they use them to go to camp compared to like leaving camp, but
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
whatever. And they end up getting to camp, and they found out, Dahlia's trees, dying.
Poison.
But we'll get to
But
more
we
of
don't
that
know
in the
that
book.
yet in the film. So what's happening in
Yeah,
the film is that then, you know, Mr. D walks up and goes, Peter Johnson or whatever he calls him this time around, and he just goes, "I have a very important job for you," and he hands Percy a broom. Loved it. I'm here for Mr.
a
D.
rake, not a
Oh,
broom.
a rake. He hands him a rake so that he can clean up. I love it. I'm here for Mr. D. So then we see that, Chiron and Mr. D are, worried about this new camper who seems to have walked in. We're a little curious on who this is. He somehow passed through the barrier, so he must be allowed to be here because monsters aren't supposed to be able to cross barriers. We learn that this person is a cyclops, and this is Tyson. So this is where Tyson gets introduced in the film. Compared to in the book, he already had a relationship with Percy before he came to camp, whereas, you know in the film you just have Percy meeting Tyson at camp, and they're not friends, they're not close, nothing. And Percy's just kind of thrust into having a half brother,
Yeah.
as Cyclops are offsprings of Poseidon and usually like nymphs.
So, can we talk about my problems with this scene?
Yeah, go for it.
So, number one, Tyson actually would not be physically able to get through the barrier in
Mm-hmm.
the in the book. Annabeth
Annabeth
has to
has to give him
give
permission.
permission. The second thing is, you know, they're like, "Oh, he's a half blood because he went through the barrier." Da 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 da. Yeah, of course he's half blood. He's a monster. We know he's part Poseidon and part nymph. We know this. This is Greek mythology. And like they go, "Oh, who's your father?" And he points at Poseidon, and I'm like, "Chiron, you know this. You know this.
Dionysus, you know this.
You know this. Like it bothers me. It bothers me. It bothers me a lot. It bothers me that like okay, the film took 4 steps forward and now it's taking 7 steps back.
Progress.
We're at -2 right now. I don't know if that's progress.
Negative
Uh
-3 based on your math, buddy.
yeah, -3. Okay, fine. No, but they took 1 step forward at the beginning with Talia's story.
Oh, okay, so we had a total of 5 steps forward.
Yeah, yeah, 7 steps
Oh,
back
okay,
now.
okay, okay, okay. So,
Yeah,
sure, we're at
but also
-2.
like making Chiron and Mr. D look stupid. I mean, like, come on.
What's the point?
What's the point? And then like they're like, oh, we need to see Percy so we can introduce him to Tyson. And they're like, hi, this is Tyson. He's your half brother. Aha!
Surprise! Yay!
Surprise. And what I will say is, I like how the book handles this a lot better because like
Mhm.
Tyson gets claimed by Poseidon the same way Percy got claimed in the last book.
Yeah.
And I know they didn't do the claiming of Percy in the last film, so the claiming wouldn't make any sense to us.
Nope.
But who cares about that? Because the bulls, no, sorry, a bull just attacked the camp. Not
Yeah.
bulls. One bull.
A bull.
A
A
bull.
singular bull, which is a colchis bull. I might be butchering that pronunciation,
I
but I
think you're
think it
correct.
is a colchis bull. It
You
breaks
could
through the
call it made
barrier.
by his Hephaestus, made by
Yeah,
by the forges of
it's
Hephaestus.
a big metal bull, pretty much, breaks through the barrier. And my biggest complaint about this is Clarisse is like, this is so cool, which is not who Clarisse is. Like, Clarisse cares about the camp more than anything. She cares about protecting the people in the camp more than anything. She would not be happy about a bull breaking into camp.
Also, like what I like about Clarisse in the book, say what you will, she's a jerk. Like she is she is rude, she is crude, and she is a jerk to us, the main character. Because obviously when you read a book, you read through the eyes of the main character. We read through the eyes of Percy Jackson. So she's a jerk to us. So obviously from our perspective, Clarissa's a jerk. Say what you will. That girl is proud as crap about the camp. Like
Oh, yeah.
I would never question her loyalty when it came to Camp Half Blood.
None. None. But so that happens. Apparently, no one can help take down this singular bull. It's wreaking havoc everywhere. In the
By the
book,
way,
there
it's
are two
two in the
bulls.
book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is why it's a lot more like, scary because like they can kind of work on one of them, but then there's a second one that's like, hello. But apparently, everyone's just so weak in this film that nobody can do anything. Tyson grabs the bull and just says, "Bad bull." And and then it breathes fire on him. He is flame resistant because he's a cyclops, which is cool. And
At least they
then
got one thing right. Another step
they got
forward.
they got one thing right. Hey, they gave Tyson one eye, so like props.
Two steps forward. All right.
2 steps forward. All
We're
right, we're
still in the
back at zero.
negative. No, we're
We're no,
we're
no,
back
no.
at
We're back
zero.
at zero. We're back at zero.
No, -1 because of the Clarice thing,
Oh, right. That was a step back.
and
All right, we're at
-2
-1.
because of the only one bull.
Are we still at -2? I've lost
Yeah,
track of this counting
we
system that
literally
we're
went
doing
back.
for some reason.
We went down to back up to -2. When we rate this film, we're gonna be in the negatives. Let's
Why
continue.
why why are we suddenly doing this? I'm very confused. Here we
I
are.
don't know. It's 8 p.m. I'm having fun.
It's noon. um, so yeah, pretty much this bull then corners Percy, tries to hit Percy, but this bull is dumb, so it can't realize, hey, my horns are in the way, so I'm hitting the building instead of Percy. Percy then like does this move, which credit to him is like a cool move, a really dumb way. It's like the Death Star in Star Wars, but what he does is he clicks his pen and he chucks it into the bull's mouth, and the riptide like opens up and then stabs the bull in like its heart, and then that's how the bull just explodes.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Do you know what this reminds me of? It very
The
much
Death
like
Star in Star Wars.
oh no, that, but also the fact that it kept hitting the building and couldn't like reach him with its mouth. It reminded me of Meet the Robinsons with the dinosaur and like it has its head up against the building. It's like, why can't I get him? I have a big head and little arms.
It's a
I
good
love
time.
that film so much.
It's a great film. It is a fantastic film.
Oh,
So yeah, I mean, like the bullfight happens differently, obviously, in the book because there are two bulls. Annabeth has to give Tyson permission to break into the camp barrier so that he can help, but Tyson does help. Tyson takes down one of the bulls, and then with the help of Percy and then Clarisse and the other campers are able to take down the other bull. So, like, you still see the strength of Clarisse in this moment. Like, you still see that, you
yeah.
know, happen. Whereas here, Clarisse is useless.
So I'm gonna get to another issue that I have with the film, really quick. So after the Bulls are defeated, we learn because Percy's just got the camp in the book. Percy hasn't been there all summer. That Chiron has been fired because we learned that Talia's tree has been poisoned, and Chiron's been blamed. And a new head of activities has come in named Tantalus. Tantalus is not in the film at all because why would he be? Mr. D is all of them start like trying to figure out how they got through the bill in the film. Then they discover that Talia's tree has been poisoned right then and there. So they didn't know before. Now they know. So now we're kind of caught up with the book.
Yeah, we are kind of caught up with the book. And, I don't love how they did it, but hey, we've caught up. We've understood Talia's tree is poisoned. That's where we're at. So, in the book, oh,
So I was going to say in
also,
the film, after the bull blows up from Riptide, we have a scene with Luke in the camp.
yeah, which is weird. Where did he come from? Why is he here? Why is he allowed to be here?
So Luke has this like teleportation device, which like I don't think is book accurate nor
Nope.
like at all. Like so he just kind of teleports into which like it's not book accurate. It's not even book accurate to any of the future books. Like if Luke had the power to teleport anywhere in the world, Olympus would have been dead in like 2 days.
Olympus would have been dead a lot faster.
That's all I'm gonna say. So the fact that Luke is like able to like be like, yeah, teleportation, I'm cool. And basically Luke's like telling Percy like, hey, join our side. There's a lot more evil people now. And you're like, hey, we never really understood your like why you did what you did from the last film. Also, he's like, hey, I survived. Do you want to know how? Because I can swim.
Wow. Good
Wow,
for you,
man.
buddy.
Good. You could swim. That's really great, man. That's like half the cool that you could swim. Like, okay. It was really stupid. It was
Also,
dumb dialogue.
also, he got abandoned on top of a building in the last film.
I don't know, man. Like, it was very confusing. Obviously, Luke has to be in this film. Like, they can't just write Luke's character out of the film because he's
No,
so
because
important to the book and the storytelling of like the series. But
right?
it just they messed up his character so bad. He still doesn't have his scar. He doesn't have a scar over his eye, which they're still missing. And in that moment, he's like, "Hey, Percy, a lot of us are gonna be on the bad side, so da 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 da." Um, Also, I poisoned a tree. Bye.
Bye. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
the tree's poisoned, which sucks. But after they've realized that the tree's poisoned and everything, and the camp is now vulnerable to attacks, Percy asks Chiron about a prophecy that he is involved in, and because Luke mentions this to him,
oh yeah.
and then he visits the oracle who tells him the prophecy, like the great prophecy, which Percy doesn't hear until book 5.
And this is where I have my issues with the new great prophecy. Because this isn't the right great prophecy at all. This is wrong. It was like when two cousins fight over the fleece at age and also like the prophecy will begin. Also, they're like at age 20. Okay. I understand you effed up by making them 16. I get it. I get it. But he's age 12 in the first book. He's
Yeah,
age 17 when the prophecy is supposed to happen in the fifth book.
he's
That's
16.
5 years. If he's age 16 in the first film and it's supposed to be 5 years later, that's 21, not 20.
Um, but you mathed wrong
What do you mean I mathed wrong? No, they
because
mathed
it's
wrong.
no, you did, because it's 12 to 16, which is 4 years, not 12 to 17, and 16 to 20 is 4 years.
Is it the prophecy when he turns 17?
No, it's when he turns 16. You are a fake fan.
Sorry. I haven't read the last book in a while.
You don't need to read the last book to know that this happens when he's supposed to be 16. Come on, Steven, you're better than this.
I thought it was 1 year every book. Because I
No,
thought it was
because the
12.
third book happens in the winter.
That's where my brain got confused. I was literally thinking every book was a year. It's
Fake
been a
fan.
while. Okay,
Ladies and gentlemen, bury Steven in the comments, please, because he is a fake fan.
Sebastian, cut this all out.
Nah, Sebastian, keep this in.
Sebastian, you and me against Ankit, we're fine.
You don't even have his phone number.
Please. Um. Okay, so no, but fine. He's supposed to be 16 and 20. Yeah, that's fine. My other thing is like it does the whole story before it tells the whole story of Zeus and Poseidon and Hades how they defeated Kronos and they tell it wrong.
Oh, yeah, they tell the story. For context, in the film, they say that Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus killed Kronos together. That's not how it works. Zeus killed Kronos
Yeah, so
and
basically
then freed his brothers.
Zeus's mother, her name is it's Gaia, isn't it? Gaia is Zeus's
Gaia.
mother. Yeah. So Gaia feeds Kronos a rock instead of Zeus. And Zeus grows up, trains, and then beats the heck out of his dad and frees his brothers. And that's how and he also slices up Kronos into little pieces and throws it down into Tartarus. So like not only did you tell it wrong, you told it way wrong.
So
You
are we giving
decide
them -5 for that one? I've lost track of our counting system at this point.
-10. You ignored Greek mythology. Like how do you not like Rick didn't even tell the story wrong. Rick knew how it happened and you purposely were like, "Ah, we want Percy's dad to be involved in the fight."
Who isn't even in this film?
No. None of the gods are. Like, okay, which makes sense. Like, well, there is one god who's in the film. It's fine. But like
One
none of the
god.
big 3 are, which, they barely show up in like the first they only show up in the first book if I remember correctly, and they don't even show up in the third. So they don't even show up in this book, so it makes sense they're not in the book.
Yeah,
But they're
like,
talked about. Like Poseidon is talked about constantly in the book.
oh yeah, it ain't a complaint. He's talked about, but he's not there. So
Yeah, so that's accurate. And also Percy not being able to talk to Poseidon is also very, very accurate.
yeah, so Annabeth proposes that they should go on a quest to get the Golden Fleece from Polyphemus, which no one is supposed to know that Polyphemus has the fleece in the first place. Like,
And
nobody
Grover's like,
knows.
no, I ain't going. I don't care what we need. I'm not gonna go. You can't make me. I'm not gonna go. And I'm like, all right, Brendan T. Jackson. Yeah, don't go on the quest you weren't supposed to go on in the book anyway.
Don't go on the quest that you're not even around for in the book anyway.
I was like, is this how they're actually gonna fix it? They don't save
It's
Grover. They're just going after Golden Fleece, and Grover's just not gonna be on the quest. I was wrong.
You were wrong. You
I
were
was
wrong.
wrong. So she goes to Mr. D is like, hey, this is the only way to save the cap. And I'm like, I guess they have to show Annabeth is smart some way. And I'm going to put in quotation marks, Annabeth is smart because, in the book, she's a brilliant person. In the book, in the films, I doubt.
You just doubt.
I
That's
just
it. You
doubt.
just
I
doubt.
just doubt. I doubt her brain. I'm sorry. Like they don't really show her as this like brilliant tactical Athena daughter, but in the book they do. In the film, I'm like, okay.
No, it's completely fair.
Um,
So, Mr. B says that this is a terrible idea, but then at the campfire, he's like, this was my idea, and it's a brilliant idea. So, instead of choosing Annabeth and Percy, who brought him the idea, he gives it to Clarisse, because why not? Which is book accurate. In the book, Clarisse does get the quest, but it's because she won a chariot race, even though Percy and Annabeth saved the camp in the book from birds. But Clarisse gets the quest, and it's not Mr. D's choice, it's Tantalus that says, I'm giving the quest to Clarisse. Because Mr. D doesn't care.
the thing about it, also Mr. D, I believe
Isn't
yeah,
around.
yeah. So the other thing that to me is a misstep of the film here is the reason the quest is taken. So in the book, Percy has a dream about Grover, and learns that he is like it's like a lifeline. I'm trying to remember the proper term. I'm the term where they're connected now.
What?
If Grover dies, Percy will die.
Empathy link?
Yeah, that's the term I was trying to find.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it was in my head. I just lost the term for a second. I'm tired. So they have an empathy link, and Percy has a dream, and he sees Grover in Polyphemus's lair with the Golden Fleece, and he tells Mr. D and Tantalus at it in front of the entire camp, hoping that it will pressure Mr. D and Tantalus to send somebody on a quest um, to save everyone. And then they choose Clarisse to go. The
Yeah.
thing is, in Camp Half Blood, you cannot go on a quest unless the Oracle gives you the quest, unless the Oracle gives you a prophecy to go.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of ignore that in the film. Also, because they forgot to introduce the Oracle in the last film, and they kind of introduced her in this one just to tell the big prophecy, and they failed to tell any other prophecies. But like, whatever.
That's how it goes.
So Clarisse gets the quest, and apparently you need a satyr to go on this quest because that's the only way to find the Golden Fleece. Excuse me? That's not book accurate or lore accurate. I
No.
mean, I understand that Grover found Polyphemus' lair because the Golden Fleece like drew him to it,
Yeah.
but no one knows that
No
Polyphemus
one knows
has the
that
Golden
Polyphemus has
Fleece.
the golden fleece. But yeah,
Apparently,
anyway.
so so they choose like the guy who was like Clarisse at the beginning of the film to go with her because he's Clarisse's biggest simp, Clarisse. Which I'm
I mean, why not? Why not?
Grover's like more power to that guy. Yeah, Grover's happy he's going like.
Grover's like,
Oh
see ya.
yeah, Brandon T. Jackson's like, okay, cool, I don't have to die.
He's very okay with it.
And then Percy's like, nah, I'm gonna go anyway because because I'm the hero of the story.
Yeah. That's
And
not
this
how
is
it
where
goes.
I have an issue of like film Percy versus book Percy. Book Percy was okay not being the center of attention. Book Percy's like really okay not being like the hero. Like even in the end of the book, like where
Yeah,
everyone's
the
praising
only
Clarisse.
reason Book Percy goes on this quest is because he wants to save Grover. The only reason that he even goes, like, he's slightly upset that like the quest wasn't given to him because he's the one that like came and was like, "Hey, like Grover needs help. Like we need to go save Grover." But the only reason that he actually goes on the quest in the book is because he wants to save Grover, not because he needs the glory of getting the fleece or anything like that. He just wants to save his best friend. And, not die in the process because empathy link.
Yeah, so but this makes me feel like this is pure glory. Like he wants another quest to prove he's a good hero. And the other thing that I think another reason he goes is because he's like, I don't trust Clarisse to do a quest. And it's like, no, Percy knew Clarisse would like do the quest. Like she'd
Hmm.
be fine. Like, but Percy also was like aware that she might not save Grover.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like Clarisse, he doesn't trust Clarisse to do that, but he trusts Clarisse to get the Golden Fleece.
Oh, yeah, 100%. But before we go on this quest in the film, we're going to take a quick snack break, and then we'll be back and go on this quest and find out more. So, Percy and Annabeth and Grover, they all decide that we are going to leave and we're going to go on this quest. And then Tyson joins them, even though the group doesn't want him to join them. But Tyson's like, I'm going to go.
So I think this is a perfect time to talk about the sprayable mist.
Yep,
So
that's not how the mist works.
so the mist is introduced in the first book as this thing that causes mortals to see things from Percy's world not as they are. So for example, when Poseidon came out of the water in the first movie, the fishermen probably didn't see Poseidon. We don't know because the mist wasn't mentioned at all in the first movie. But in
Nope.
the book, if that scene did happen in the book, which it didn't, but if it did, we can imagine the guy would have saw like a block of birds, a flock of birds, not block of birds, flock of birds or something.
Words are hard.
words are hard. Flock of birds. But the mist now is a sprayable thing. So you just have to spray Tyson's one eye and it becomes two.
Yeah, no, and that's not how it works. Like in the book, he legitimately Percy doesn't know that Tyson's a Cyclops because the mist just obscures it to where he thinks that Tyson just has two regular eyes until he can then see through it kind of at camp for the first time where he's like, "Oh, you only have one eye."
And I think this is like one of those things where it's like, do we really have to dumb down the mist so hard for this audience? Like, it it's another step back. It's another thing where I'm like, film, I understand you're playing up for sins of the father, but don't dumb down things that actually Rick explained perfectly for 13-year-olds. We get it. We get what the mist does. You don't gotta go, you spray it, becomes normal.
I mean, give your audience a little bit of credit.
I feel like they were trying to sell a toy. I feel like, like they'll sell Percy's sword on Toys R Us's shelf. If Toys R Us even I know Toys R Us shut down in my hometown. I don't know if it exists anymore, but a toy store
I think it
shelf.
came back.
Oh, nice. Welcome. Well done, Toys R Us. Well done. But they'll sell Percy's sword at Toys R Us with the sprayable mist because you can now figure out the gods and fight stuff with Percy's sword.
Because that's how life works.
We also skipped the scene, which I'd like to mention now, which we'll talk more about, obviously, in the next episode. But just so we're aware of it, is after Percy gets the whole quest, gets the whole big prophecy from the Oracle of Delphi. By the way, she doesn't say she's the Oracle of Delphi. Another issue I have. He kind of stares at his sword and goes, you must be the cursed blade. We'll talk more about that
We'll talk about that
later.
when we get to it. So, yeah, they then, decide, and Annabeth's very hostile towards Tyson, which is book accurate. She is hostile towards Tyson in the book as well. And we learn
Yeah,
more later on why she's hostile towards Tyson. And it does make sense when you take into account her trauma and everything, which we'll
but
talk
in the
about.
but in the book, I always felt like Annabeth's meanness towards Tyson wasn't like super bad. In the film, it borders on like racism. like it literally feels so like hardcore racist of like I hate you so much from the bottom of my soul. I want to rip out your throat and everything you stand for. I don't care, you're Percy's half brother. I'm like, damn, Annabeth, who hurt you?
Annabeth's changed.
Yeah.
So they then decide to get in the aforementioned taxi that we mentioned with the Grey sisters, and they all share one eyeball and they drive this magical taxi.
And
As they're
one tooth.
driving, and one tooth, it is a very fun scene, and I did really enjoy the scene with the Grey sisters. I thought it was
Yeah.
very well done. It was really just a fun time. I was like, yes, I'm here for it. Like, it's wacky, it's silly, which is what it is in the book. It's wacky, it's silly, but they give him coordinates, which they do in the book as well. They give him the coordinates of 30, 31, 75, 12, and they literally go, you'll know what it means when you need to. And then that's it, which is legitimately how it goes in the book. So other than it happening at a different point in time, this scene is like fairly book accurate in terms of like the feel to it and what information they actually give him, and the banter between the sisters is just fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I have an issue of where they drop them off. Like, it just, I understand. So they drop them
I,
off in Washington D.C. because they're like, we don't have enough money to pay to all the way to Florida, and I'm like, but why?
but why? But
But
also,
why?
it did add for a lovely joke of Tyson thinking that they were in Olympus, and he's just yelling at the capital of, "Oh, great Zeus!"
See, I like the actor who plays Tyson. I think he kind of understood the assignment, but I also I love Tyson from the book. I love him because he's so simple and he's like he kind of stands for something. The Tyson in the film feels too old to me. He doesn't feel like a baby Cyclops. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, again, it's the whole issue of everyone's just aged up.
Exactly. But Tyson, a baby Cyclops, like it just it gripes me a bit because there are things
It
about
does.
Tyson that like I'm like I love this about this character.
He's so pure. He's so loving. He's wonderful. But
Yes.
yeah, it's interesting.
S-
We'll talk more about Tyson soon, but they
So we end up
then
going to Starbucks,
they do go to Starbucks.
or it's a coffee shop with an aforementioned name. Um, with an aforementioned name, which I don't remember the name, but
I
there's
don't
all these
know.
workers there, and Grover's like, I'm gonna get something with some nectar because you haven't lived until you've had nectar, and I'm
But
like,
also Grover can't have nectar.
okay, so this is where the issues of the film and the book come into play again. So it's great that they're introducing these things. Mark, thank you for actually bringing these into the film, but can you just keep to the lore accurate? So nectar is supposed to be nectar for the gods. It's supposed to be it too much of it will kill a mortal. It will kill a mortal immediately. It can
Too
too
much
much
will
of it
kill
will
a
kill
demigod.
a half blood. So Percy can't even have a lot of it, neither can Annabeth. But they make it seem like you can go to a coffee shop and get it.
Yeah.
Also, my other gripe with this, in this point of the book, we're supposed to meet a monster. We're supposed to meet the Hydra, which the Hydra is supposed to be a representation of a growing franchise. A really, really funny of Monster Donuts. It's hilarious because there's a Monster Donuts like literally near my house. I love it.
We've already met the Hydra.
Yeah.
We
So
killed it in
the
we
first book
turned it
kind
to
of
stone.
the
Or
first
first movie.
film kind of shot the bed on the Hydra bit. So they had to replace it with something. So thanks Craig Titley for making Mark's job harder, even though he's already a terrible writer. So he just made his job even more harder. Um, so Craig and Mark, you're a terrible combination.
Hey, Mark
Um,
Mark tried. Craig didn't set him up for success.
that's true. So here we are. They get their, lovely matcha green teas with nectar. I'm just gonna assume that's what they order because that's my Starbucks order. And then they start walking down the street, and then Grover gets kidnapped.
Grover gets kidnapped by Chris Rodriguez and some of Luke's henchmen, and that's it. Grover gets kidnapped. That's how Grover gets kidnapped, apparently.
So
Okay.
Percy's like, ah, no, we lost my best friend, and the only way to find the Golden Fleece.
Yep.
The second part seemed
Wrote
more
the.
important than the first at that moment, but like, I'm not gonna tell Logan Lerman how to act a line. um,
I mean, you are a director.
I
Maybe
am.
someday.
So then they're like, okay, we need to find Luke, and we need to like figure something out. So they decide to go to the UPS store, which
Because
is
UPS is apparently run by Hermes, which I don't hate that choice. It's not book accurate, but I don't hate that choice.
no. So they go to meet Hermes, which in the book, to be fair, Hermes is the god who sends Percy on this quest and sets him up for the quest. Also, in the book, Hermes just shows up at camp, but in the film, we have to kind of go this long way to meet Nathan Fillion, who plays Hermes. Now, I love Nathan Fillion. Nathan Fillion is one of my favorite actors of all time. Like, he's amazing. He's in the I love Nathan Fillion.
So I'm looking at his IMDb right now. I honestly, oh, I've seen Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Um, um,
Ankit,
uh,
no. No,
um,
buddy.
um, hold
Please
on, we're
don't.
still scrolling. Oh, I've seen Modern Family. I don't remember who he plays in Modern Family, but apparently
He
he's in it.
played her boyfriend for a second, the daughter.
Oh yeah. Okay, okay. So I do remember him in that one. He is in Cars 3. He voices Sterling in Cars 3. Um,
For those who don't know, Nathan Fillion is
um,
most known for Firefly, which was a sci-fi series that was very popular in the 2000s, as well as Castle, which he was the lead of for for all of its seasons.
great. So I haven't seen a lot of Nathan Fillion's work, buddy, because I'm scrolling through the rest of this, and I legitimately that's all I think I've seen that he's done.
Fair. So I love Nathan Fillion. I don't think they gave him a lot to work with as an actor, so I don't really enjoy the way he plays Hermes. I think he does well. He does well. Uh, and then they give he's like, oh, I you want to go after Luke, da 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 da. So he gives Percy the things he gives him in the book, minus one of the things. So he gives Percy the thermos, which has the four winds of the earth.
I do
And
like how Annabeth, again, you said you doubt. She was like, "Oh, I'm gonna open this," and he has to be like, "Not in here."
again, I doubt her knowledge in the film. And then he gives them a tape gun, which is not book accurate, nor I mean, I don't even know what the thing does. And then
It
also
apparently dissolves things.
he doesn't give them the pills, which like I'm like the pills were like really helpful in this adventure. I wonder
Mhm.
like how they're gonna get out of certain things that I know are supposed to come, but like here we are. Um,
We gonna find out.
so we move on from that scene to basically he's like, I'll go from the Potomac that you can get to a cruise ship, and the cruise ship will lead you to Florida
To Luke.
to
Well,
Luke.
no, because they were like, "Do you know where we can get Luke?" Because they wanted to go find Grover,
That's
and
right.
they know that he was taken by Luke, so they were like, "Okay, let's go save Grover."
Yeah. I always think it's really funny when people mention the Potomac in movies because like the Potomac is like not. It's like it always looks nicer than it does in reality.
Yeah.
Um, just for everyone's notification, but the Potomac is next to the White House. It is like one of the reasons why the White House is there. When the Virginians
Mhm.
were arguing of where to put the Capitol, the Potomac was the first place they chose.
It wasn't
Um,
just the Virginians; it was like the entire country.
well, no, it was a huge fight between the New York people and the Virginia people because the New York people wanted the Capitol in New York.
Yeah.
Until Alexander Hamilton was like, "Give me what I want, I'll give you what you want," and they were like,
Give me control
"Okay."
of the banks, and we'll put the capital down in what is now Washington D.C., which was the Potomac.
Yeah. So they end up at the Potomac River and like they're like, "Oh, how are we gonna get to the boat?" And Tyson's like, "I will ask my father for help." And at that moment, I'm like, "Okay, all right, uh, uh, I'll give credit. Let's see what happens." And all of a sudden, one hippocampi shows up. Not three,
Not three, just
just
one.
one.
In the book,
Um,
it's three.
So in the book, it's three, and Percy gets to summon them. But I understand they really want Tyson to have something to do in the film. I'll give them some credit. And they hop on the one hippocampi to the boat. I wish there was three because the cool thing about the three in the book that I love is there was one for every size of them. There was one that was
Mhm.
Percy sized, one that was Annabeth sized, and one that was Tyson sized. And the
And the
one
one
that's
that was
Tyson
Tyson
sized,
size is named Rainbow and
yeah,
is
Rainbow,
beautiful, and we love
Rainbow.
Rainbow.
And like
Oh,
there's a whole I mean, if there was another book out there that Rick Riordan could write, he could write Tyson and Rainbow, an adventure story. They could have a whole book dedicated just to
look,
them.
I want to hear about the adventures that Tyson and Rainbow get up to under the sea. Like, just what did they
Right?
do? What did they do? Like, Poseidon's like, "Hey, Tyson, can you run some errands for me?" "Yeah, sure, Dad." "Can I take Rainbow?" "Yeah, go for it. It'll make things go faster." And then chaos ensues, and Rainbow and Tyson just have to figure out how to get out of it, the two of them. Ah, I would be here for that book. I want that book. Rick, I know you're really, really busy, but like, hey.
We think we just struck gold, so write about Tyson and Rainbow.
We're
Um
definitely not the first people to have this idea, but
no. So they take the hippocampi to the Princess Andromeda, which
in the
bef-
book is a cruise ship, and in the film is a yacht.
so Ankit, can we talk about the like? So for those who don't know, the Princess of Andromeda in the book didn't just have demigods in it; it
Nope.
had thousands of monsters in it
Mhm.
and a bunch of passengers who were being held captive.
Mhm.
A lot more darker in the book.
Mhm.
In the
Cuz in the book, Luke's actually a villain.
yeah, in the film, It's just a nice yacht. Like,
It's
I'm
just a nice yacht.
like, who gave him the money? Like, that's a question that I mean, I knew who gave him the money in the book, but who gave him the money in the film? That's my question.
Nah, he's just got a nice yacht.
So they get on
Let's
the
be
yacht.
honest. He stole the yacht. He killed the owner and stole the yacht.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So they get on the yacht and they're like, "Oh, look, it's all of the bad people who betrayed the camp, like Serena Beauregard." And like so they basically just like ruin the surprise that certain people betrayed the camp in this book because
Yeah.
like there's nobody at camp who's secretly passing Luke information for 3 books.
No, not at
For,
all. What are you talking about?
for those who don't know, in the
Don't
book.
don't ruin it.
No,
There's
I
a
won't.
spy.
No,
That's it.
I
That's all
just
we're
was gonna
saying.
say
There's a
there's a
spy.
spy at camp who gives the Luke information of what's happening at camp when he's not there.
That's it.
We won't ruin who it is. Of course not.
You
You should
kind
read
of
the
already
book.
have.
No.
You said the name.
They said the name in the film.
You literally just said her name on this podcast, though.
Yeah, but I was repeating the line from the film.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
From the film.
And then what did you follow it up with?
The spy from camp.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Don't forget.
Listeners, bury Stephen in the comments. He thought that he's a fake fan. He thinks that there's 17 when the prophecy is supposed to happen in the books. He's already ruined. This thing didn't even try to stay away. Like, we know that we're going to talk about spoilers as we're going through this, but like, didn't even think for once that maybe he might be spoiling something. Bury Stephen, please.
They spoiled it in the film, okay? Moving
No, they
on.
didn't. They didn't spoil anything in the film. They just said that she was there. You spoiled it right here, right now. They technically never spoiled anything in the film.
So, moving on. Uh so we see three more demigods other than Chris Rodriguez who's betrayed the camp. And
Oh
like
no.
then they're trying to get through and Percy and Annabeth get caught because Tyson's clumsy. Which, okay, sure. And then they get
Fine.
taken into Luke's whole area and Luke's like, "Hi cousins."
Which is weird.
Yeah. And again, Luke in this film is not Luke in the book. Luke in this film is very much like a snarky bastard you just want to slap.
Yep.
Uh you don't meet the brother, the Bear brothers, the half Bear brothers. Uh you don't meet people that I'm like, they're interesting characters that are on Luke's side that you just don't meet. Um and basically, yeah, they're like, "Luke, where's Grover?" And Luke's like, "Oh, I've already sent our brave friend off to find the
Yeah,
fleece."
he sends Grover ahead to find the fleece and then they are gonna follow. Like that is his grand plan. Dumb plan, but fine. He pretty much explains that to them and then he says, "All right, go lock them in the brig." And
Yeah.
then
He also says,
they're
"I
in
need the fleece because of why he needs the fleece." He explains he's gonna resurrect.
Kronos, which doesn't happen until much later.
I Yeah. Also, like Luke doesn't. I just it boggles my mind. Luke's whole arc in this film.
It doesn't make any sense. But so pretty much what's happening is that they're stuck in the brig and then Percy uses his water powers to make waves happen so that they can get the bag so that they can get that box tape dispenser sealer thingamabob, or I don't know what it's actually called. So
Tape dispenser, packing dispenser,
packing tape.
line thingy.
They, they need the tape and they get the tape and he uses it in possibly the most ineffective way possible. He like does like a whole like I'm gonna go around the whole thing when he could have literally just done an X and done the same thing.
Listen, no one said Percy was the smart one.
I don't think Annabeth is either.
Yeah, fair. So they break out.
Also, how, and I've just thought about this, the bag was outside, right?
Yeah.
How are they? I understand that they were able to stick their hand out and get the bag, but I don't think the thing was big enough for them to then bring the bag inside
I don't think so
the
either. Also,
cage.
also, I kind of want a question of like Luke for a second. Okay, so you beat these people, right? You kidnapped them, you threw them in the brig, and you left the bag in a place where they could easily get to it.
He's Luke's not a good villain. We've established this. He's not good at his job. But like it doesn't
So,
make any sense.
so to
Like
explain the
why
princess,
how did they get it in? And also Annabeth grabs it, but then Percy has the tape. How did that happen?
let's just movie magic, all right?
I'm so confused. Did I miss something?
So to explain the differences between the book and the film really quick on this, when they arrive on the cruise ship of the Princess Andromeda, which they go to directly from camp, we don't take this whole backstory just to get to the Princess Andromeda. No, no. It's the first place we get to before we get to Florida.
Yeah.
So we hear Luke's plan, all of it. And, Percy and Annabeth and Tyson all get, trapped by Luke. Yes, this is true. And they're able to escape because Luke kind of lets them. We won't spoil it for people who want to read the book and kind of understand what I'm talking about, but like Luke kind of lets them escape. And so they escape and they go on a lifeboat and they get to the that's what they take to the Florida to get to the Sea of Monsters. Um in the film, uh again they take a lifeboat, which from the yacht. Uh, and Annabeth does use the four winds of Hermes to guide it. Uh, but basically they just skip the hull, and now they're fighting all these half bloods all over the all over the yacht. And Percy ends up on the roof, and Luke comes out and looks at Percy and says, "What are you doing on my roof, man? Like, not cool," or
Get off
something
my
like,
roof.
"Get off my roof!" Like something really like out of place. The action gets halted. It was a really interesting action sequence until that one line got said. And I was just like, and I'm sitting there like, uh, because
Look,
like
was it a terrible line? Yes. Did I laugh at the line? Also, yes.
por qué no los dos? Um, but
So
like
pretty much he
yeah,
says, "Get off my roof." And for context of what's happening with Annabeth and Tyson, they are on the lifeboat and like they are escaping on the lifeboat. And then Percy jumps off the roof. Credit to him. He does what Luke says. He jumps off the roof and creates a wave, and now he's riding the wave, which is like cool, right? Like fine. Percy's riding a wave. Why not? Like let's go. Whatever.
not book accurate, but
Not book
whatever.
accurate, but whatever. It's cool. Like Percy's riding a wave. And
But then
then one of the other demigods tries to jump on it and he doesn't succeed. But then Luke is able to ride the wave?
so
What?
I thought about this. I really I paused the film to think about how this is possible. Okay, so like head canon. So I have two reasons why this could happen, okay?
Okay.
So my first head canon is that he said Maya and he's using flying shoes just to stay behind Percy on the way.
It's pronounced Maya.
Maya, sorry. But in the film they said Maya. I just want to point out I'm being film accurate right now.
Sure, but it's pronounced Maya.
We know this, but I'm being film accurate right now.
Okay.
Um and then my second headcanon for the film is Kronos, because Kronos is big bad apparently, because they forgot to introduce him in the first film. Oops, Craig. Uh, and now Mark's like, yeah, Kronos guy. Sarcophagus, cool, cool.
Yeah.
Uh, Kronos gave him powers of all three of the gods.
So, anyway, Luke is for some reason able to ride this wave and starts having a conversation with Percy, and Percy then just like gets some water and like knocks him off the wave and like back into the sea. And I did laugh at that part. I was like, yeah.
Because Luke's like, join me, join the dark side of the Force.
And Percy's just like, nah. And just knocks him over.
But don't
And
forget, Luke can swim. Luke can
Luke
swim, so
can
he's
swim.
fine. He's
He's
fine.
fine.
Luke can swim.
Luke can swim. So he then joins Annabeth and Tyson onto the boat, and he lets Tyson, Percy tries to, be a good friend and a good brother. And he's like, look, Tyson, like, I know a lot of people don't trust you, but like, here, why don't you steer for a little bit? And he gives Tyson the thermos. And while Tyson's steering, Annabeth explains that she detests Cyclopses or Cyclope because a Cyclope is what killed Talia.
Yeah.
So it makes sense where her, anger stems from, but like you said, it feels like it might be borderline like a bit too much. So
And then Tyson also tells a story of how he scared Boy Scouts.
yeah, and it's like a really heartfelt thing on the lifeboat where people open up a bit. They are like, hey, like, I'm Tyson scared because he scares people. He doesn't want to scare people. He's not trying to, but he just does without realizing why he is. And Annabeth's scared of Tyson because of a traumatic experience that happened to her when she was 7, even though that doesn't make sense in terms of aging. But
Can we talk about really quick why Tyson's on the quest? Because we missed that.
oh no, he's just there because he wanted to be
No,
there
no,
for
no,
Percy.
no, no. Well, that's book accurate. Film version of the quest. Film version. We missed this scene.
Oh yeah,
Film
Grover
version.
says he's not
So
going anywhere
Tyson
without Tyson.
Tyson shows up and Tyson's like, I want to come. And Annabeth's like, no, I'm racist. He can't come. Um, and then Percy's like, yeah, but like he's my brother. And then she's like, no, he can't come. And then, but he's like, oh, but I could talk to Polyphemus and try to convince him so he doesn't, cause any problems because I think I can convince him. And Grover's like, I'm not leaving unless he comes with us because he'll protect me. Because Grover's afraid of going to Polyphemus there because all the satyrs will die there because that's the film lore, not the book lore. That's just the film lore. And so Tyson ends up on the quest.
That's why
Um,
we're on the quest.
also, Tyson's story to me, the Boy Scout story, it's good. It's good writing. I'll give Mark a little credit for that writing. But I like the story from I like the homeless story better. Like I feel like the fact he was a homeless monster in the middle of Brooklyn, he got beat up by some other monsters. I just think that tells such a more interesting story. I also really love the new line that was spoken by Sally Jackson in the new TV show that I think is really, really good and kind of helps with the storytelling of this book is not all heroes are good and not all monsters are evil.
Yeah,
And I think like that's something that like Tyson is so important to the storytelling. I just think, why did we need to come up with such a weird story for Tyson when a good story already exists? Is it because we can't show the whips on his back? We can't show the marks is because it's a children's film. I just think there's a lot of like
it's a
but
children's book.
yeah, but I mean, but Rick gets into dark stuff all the time. It's like part of it. So,
Yeah,
um,
but it's a very heartfelt moment until Tyson loses grip on the thermos, and he's like, "I think I should have held it with 2 hands." And they're just like, "You think?" But that's where we're gonna end this episode of Flip the Scripts
yeah,
before more shenanigans ensue.
before getting to the Sea of Monsters.
But yeah, until next week when we finish off this film and finish talking about the Sea of Monsters and actually going to the Sea of Monsters for a grand total of like 5 minutes, we'll see you next week.